Hi, welcome to my new video. Today I'm going to be presenting to you the full uncut interview that I did with the actor Fisher-Becker when doing my documentary Doctor Who 50 Years of Time and Space. It was such an enjoyable experience, and the stories he comes out with and some of the things he says are just hilarious. Honestly, you're going to enjoy this. The whole thing's about 35 minutes long, something like that. That's because it's uncut. And there will be at times some sort of, at the end of some questions, I cut the camera off because it only had 10-minute intervals, so it's not an error in the video. That is actually how it is. But I hope that doesn't detract from the experience of watching it, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did filming it. So yeah, enjoy. What was it like working on the show?
Well, it's the best job ever. I know everybody will say that, but I've been a Doctor Who fan since William Hartnell days, so you can imagine when I got the call, I was quite beside myself. So I was very nervous at first, but Alex Kingston, in particular, she made me very comfortable, shall we say. Wonderful hair, Alex has.
Yes.
All I wanted to do was just run my fingers through it. It was quite special. And Stephen Moffat and the entire team were delightful. And of course, when I was then asked back, I genuinely got the feeling I was part of the family, which made me think, oh my God. And Matt Smith is very tactile. He likes to hug. And as much as I was enjoying the hug, all I could think as a Doctor Who fan is, oh my God, the Doctor's hugging. So I was a 12-year-old, but at the same time, had a job to do, and I'm very pleased they asked me to come back.
Put it on my call just for a
Yes.
second. I didn't.
That's all right.
Is there any memorable experiences that you have from the show?
Well, there are so many. Every day was a memorable experience. But again, going back as a fan of Doctor Who, when I first saw the TARDIS on the set and the blue box, I was surprised that I became quite emotional. Because although I call myself a fan now, but before I'd just say I'm a follower. I follow Doctor Who, but it's seeing the box. It was very emotional, and I just suddenly found myself putting my hand out to touch it. It's really, really strange. And of course, actually being on the set of being inside the TARDIS.
Yeah.
And being in the head in the box. It was the most bizarre. It was the most bizarre setup, and I became quite self-conscious because I was stuck in this box and I couldn't move. But again, Matt was very good. He made sure, because they used to closed the lid. You see, before each take, but they'd say, "Right, we're ready." Okay, and they'd close the lid, and then they'd go off and have a chat. And you think, hello, and then Matt would go, "Oh my God," and he'd go, "Oh, sorry, mate." He'd say, "Sorry, mate, are you all right in there?" And of course, once they close the lid, it gets very sweaty. But it was just a huge fun. And watching the special effects people, and I've discovered there's cobwebs in a can. And this girl, she was brilliant. They'd say, "I'd like a cobweb just there," you see, and she'd go squeeze, and this would go fly up in the air, and it would come out. They would just land exactly where they asked it to land, and then she did it every single time. So I thought, oh my gosh, I wonder what training she had. Yeah, but still.
How long did it take to be put into the costume and makeup?
Well, they allowed 2 hours, but it didn't really take that long. The first day, it was the longest, because they shaved the hair. And they actually shave it off completely. Because Stephen Moffat asked me, he said, "We would prefer if we can shave your head." And of course, you don't say no to Doctor Who, And I was a bit about it, I must admit. But take a deep breath. And the reason they wanted that was because they said a skull cap, after a while, looks like a skull cap. And of course, there would be the expense of having to produce one every day. But what I didn't realise, underneath my hair, when I'm completely bald, my head looks like an ugly fruit. So what they were trying to avoid by not having a skull cap, they got anyway, because my head is just this really weird. It does look like the dark side of the moon.
So the actual box was it weren't sort of green screening, it was actually...
Oh, no, it was green screen
Yeah.
effect, but what they did was they filmed the plinth
Yeah.
first, and then they put a bigger box in the place of the plinth, and that's what I sat in,
Yeah.
and I sat on a chair like this,
Yeah.
and then they covered that in green baize, so all there was my head stuck out. And the only difficult thing was to get it so that I was actually looking into the camera. Probably I had to turn my body like this, you see, and inside the box, and I was in a sort of double helix shape, you know, a helix.
Yeah.
So that was the only difficult thing. So it would make it look as if I was actually looking into the camera or whatever direction they wanted me to go in. And then of course Dorian's box was put on my head. And it wasn't until I was inside I realised I couldn't hear properly. And there was, I didn't really think about projection until that point. So I had to rely on the sound crew, who were excellent, because they just stick head round in my view and go, like that. Yeah.
Who's your favourite Doctor and why?
Oh, you're getting into a political area now. I used to sit on the fence because I was scared to say. And I'm, in fairness, and particularly as I've met so many of them, I love them all for different reasons. They all brought a different element to the Doctor.
Yeah.
But I have to sort of now say that Patrick Troughton was my favourite. I liked William Hartnell, but I was very, very young. I was born in 1961, so when Doctor Who started, I was only about 2. So it was only at the latter part of William Hartnell's series I remember, and I clearly remember him changing to Patrick Troughton. And my grandparents told me the story that for weeks afterwards I would say, "Is that how people die? Is that how people die? is that what it's all about?" So Patrick Troughton, because he brought a bit of wackiness, I think is the phrase. William Hartnell was this grumpy old man, effectively. But if you watch some of the older ones again, he's a bit more than just a grumpy old man. But that's what he had in essence. Whereas Patrick Troughton brought a wonderful layer of eccentricity to it, but also seriousness. And I think when I watch Matt, particularly when he's working, I think Matt Smith's got elements of Patrick Troughton.
Definitely.
But I haven't spoken to him about that. So, but there we go.
Because when he said he was researching his Doctor, he said he watched Patrick Troughton as one of his sort of first people to rely on. And I think Patrick is one of my favourite.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, also what we have to take on board the concept of another actor taking over a main role in a series had never really been done before. So credit to William Hartnell for helping produce something that people wanted to see more of, but then double credit to Patrick Troughton for having the courage to actually take on something, because we take it for granted now, because Matt hasn't even finished and people are talking about the 12th Doctor, aren't they? Whereas this is all new, and had it not worked we wouldn't be sitting here now. No. So full credit to him.
It's just amazing how he Rust himself sort of carried it over without him doing it.
Because he was so different from William Hartnell, it just helped actually. And so then when John Pertwee came, it was so what's John going to do now? Because he was more of the very serious professor type, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then Tom Baker completely Fruit Loop, really, but wonderfully so.
What's your opinion on the fandom behind the show? Like when you go to conventions and stuff like.
I love it. I will admit that initially my only, because I'd never been to a convention before, and my perception of conventions and the fans was what the media give you, and they always pick on the more extreme. But in the main, everybody are wonderfully delightful. And they got something sensible to talk about as well. There are a few scary people, and there are the stalkers, but it comes with the territory, and after a while you learn to. And I have to thank the fans. If it wasn't for the fans, I wouldn't be sitting here. And I'll take this opportunity. Fans, I wish to thank you for my new bathroom. Yeah, it was. Toby Haynes, who was the director of Pandorica, he did mention to Steve Moffat. He did say, you've got to bring Simon back because he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Now I can say that now because Toby's told me, and so was Stephen Moffat. He's told me that's exactly what happened. But Stephen Moffat also told me that he was thinking of bringing Dorian back, but wasn't sure. But it was the fans as well, because as a household name, nobody really knows Simon Fisher-Becker at all. But in Doctor Who world, I'm well known, and Dorian, the character, is, it's unbelievable. It takes me 40 minutes to cross from the lift across the foyer to the restaurant at these conventions, because everybody wants to stop and have a chat and have a photo, which I have no problems with at all.
To follow on from that one, have you had any strange experiences when meeting fans?
Strange. Well, I think the most bizarre thing, which I didn't take on, was how some professional scientists are huge Doctor Who fans. Because when I've been to the Gallifrey in Los Angeles, one of my, because all the guests get a chaperone to make sure we don't get lost. And one of them was, he was the head of a graphic design company, works for Disney. He's the head of it. He wasn't the security guard.
No,
he's the head of it. Another lady I spoke to, she's a professor, and she's studying stem cell research in plants. So those are the conversations you're having sometimes. And then at other conventions, I wouldn't even call it scary, but unusual. I was at Earl's Court, and there was this guy, distance over there, and he kept on coming forward, and then going back. And I thought it was he, because he was a bit... Because sometimes the fans are a bit scared to talk to you, which they shouldn't be.
No.
But they are. But I understand that myself. I had people I respected who I was a bit... Will they say hello? What will they think? But anyway, he got to me eventually, and he wanted me to sign his photo as Matt Smith. He wanted me to sign Matt Smith. I said, I can't do that. He said, well, you're in Doctor Who. I said, well, yes, and I want to stay in Doctor Who as well. I can't do that. It's a fake signature. You might as well write it yourself. And he just grabbed his picture like that, and he said, well, you then. And then I thought, oh. But in the main, people are lovely, and it's when some people come in their costumes. Some of them are absolutely fantastic. I mean, and they spend a lot of time on them as well.
Yeah.
And other people outside of sci-fi, they think that people are a bit weird.
No.
But it's no different than football fans. Yeah. Football fans paint their faces in the colour of the national flag if it's an international game, or their team. Yeah. But there you go. Am I gabbling?
No.
What? Right.
Confused with what I've done or not. In your opinion, what makes the show so special to reach 50 years?
This is a difficult answer. It's a different question to answer, really. Why is it so special? I mean, what is fascinating is that it's international. And so it's clearly got into the psyche of human society as a whole. Even those, I mean, in the UK particularly, but I'm sure it's the same worldwide. If you say Doctor Who, people will at least know what you're talking about, even if they don't watch it. And likewise, the image of the TARDIS.
It's become iconic.
It's become, I mean, it's in, and it's become a verb. And a noun now. People, if you say, my gosh, that house is like the TARDIS. I was filming in a house recently, and somebody on the set, I said, oh God, yeah. Because outside, it looked like this house. Right? But inside, it just grew. It was extraordinary. What else? Everybody knows what a Dalek is.
Yeah.
And to some degree, I would say a lot of people, most people know what a Cyberman is. So it's got into our lexicon, it's got into our psyche, and it's got into our way of life, really. I mean, that's what's so special about it. Has it caught people's imagination? Yes. Why has it? I think it's because there's a plausibility. It's a bit like Star Trek. There is a plausibility about everything. And, okay, maybe the science isn't quite here to achieve what we watch, but everything that we do today, 200 years ago, was pure fantasy, wasn't it? Cars. 200 years ago, automobiles, as they call them, flight, aircraft flying.
Exactly.
It's and I think the fact that we dream about it like a fairy tale means an aspect of it will happen. And my grandfather, who was an engineer, he always said, we will go to Mars. If you just need to find the technology to do it. But it will happen.
Yeah.
Whether it'll happen in the time frame, I mean, H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, his stuff hasn't happened yet.
No.
But George Orwell's 1984, which he wrote in 1948, a lot of what he had in there is here today. CCTV is a classic example of that. So, whilst the fantasy of the fairy tale is there, there will be the possibility. Now, why, as a human race, we need to fly off our planet probably suggests we're not from here in the first place, doesn't it?
It's true.
But it's pure fantasy.
Yeah. This one you've already answered, but did you watch the show prior to being on it? And if you did it influence the decision of taking?
Yes, as I previously said, yes, I've watched it since William Hartnell, and as a kid, I always fancied the idea of playing the Master. That's to be absolutely honest, I always fancied that. But to get Dorian, I just had to go to a casting. Kim gave me a call and said, "Oh, Dr. Hall will go." And so the only difference I would say is, how can I say this without actually making it sound right? I absolutely remember saying to myself, right, I really want to get this. Now, it's not that I don't say that for other jobs, but this one I really wanted to get. And so I was sent a script to learn, and in it said set homage to Star Wars, so I knew exactly what it was going to look like. And, I love all things sci-fi, so I knew about Star Wars. And then it said Dorian, large blue man, think Sydney Greenstreet. Well, for those who don't know, they could watch Casablanca. And you'll know who Sydney Greenstreet wears a fez, another connection. See? And so I knew exactly who Sydney Greenstreet was and how he was doing. So the only thing I deliberately did was I wore all blue. I wasn't going to paint myself blue and go on the underground, because that would have just got me a couple of black eyes, really, wouldn't it? But I wore a blue shirt, blue tie, blue jumper, like I got today, and so I just turned up all in blue. That's the only thing I deliberately did. And they saw 7 of us, and I was the chosen one. I was just as lucky as that, really. So, hope that's answered that. Yeah.
If you could describe Doctor Who in one sentence, what would you...
Doctor Who is a plausible science come to life. Continue. So, that's a difficult one to answer as well.
Yeah, it is. I tried to make some harder than
it is science fiction, but there's a lot of, particularly these news stories with Matt, Amy, and Rory. There was a lot of social conscience there as well. And the thing about camaraderie.
Yeah.
We're learning more about the Doctor, which is brilliant. And I think it's Matt Smith, but there are the other writers as well. I thought Tom McRae's The Girl Who Waited.
My friend loves that one.
If you don't watch Doctor Who, you won't know what that means. But there wasn't a dry eye in the house.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Do you think the show's changed a lot over its...
Well, because I have looked at some of the older ones, and in some ways it hasn't changed a lot. What's happened is science and technology has caught up with the concept of the show. Because 50 years ago they were trying to do things on a shoestring budget with not the technology we've got today. And that's why the production qualities were mocked, but the storylines of Doctor Who were excellent, particularly Patrick Charlton as well. You know, they were the actual story. So because it's like with songs, I like songs that I can hear the lyrics, and two, you can go along and get caught up with the story of the song. Has it changed? So only in that sense. I don't think it really has changed as much as people think. It's just the technology's caught up.
Because people complain a lot nowadays that it's completely different, it's not the same show, and there's a lot of like the people that more like the classic ones are like, it's not the same, and the Doctor kisses too many people. And
I must admit, this concept of snogging, it sort of defeats the object of regeneration, but we must forget that the Doctor, the woman at the end of time, is thought to be his mother.
Yeah.
So clearly, Time Lords had sex too. So, and one would think there's a bit of snogging going along with that. But it's learning more. What is fascinating is, and which Dorian helped with at the end of the previous series, was there are still a lot of questions to be answered, and I think that helps with people wanting to know more. And what I thought was very clever with the last Christmas special was everybody's wanting the answer to Doctor Who. Who the devil is this chap? And of course they bring Clara along, and we're thinking, well, who the hell is Clara? And how is it she could die twice? And is it only twice she has to, die? Who is she? Is she in fact another Time Lord, or I don't know. We have no idea. Because that's another thing I've got to be careful about.
Yeah.
Because people ask me things like, how would you like the story to develop for Dorian? And I've been told to be careful because some of my own sort of backstory that I created could get close to the truth of what they want to do, in which case I'm close to letting the cat out of the bag or spoilers. So, yeah, so that's it.
So obviously at the end of I've forgotten the name of the episode, that's terrible of me.
Wedding Song?
That's the one. With the big speech that's now become quite a... Loads of people have used it.
It's brilliant. I have to... People send me things that they put together using the speech, which is wonderful. But I have to thank Stephen Moffat because he's given me my closing speech. Because at these conventions, you're asked to do an opening ceremony. You sort of say a hello and blah, blah, blah. But then at the end, you're supposed to say a goodbye. And because most of us don't really know what to say at all. But it's my speech because it's what everybody wants to hear. Brilliant.
And did he say to you yourself, like, the whole Fall of the 11th, do you know what that goes to? Or have you been kept out of the dark of that as well?
Very, not deliberately so. I think what it is, because so much, and everything is done out of sequence. I mean, episode 13 was filmed halfway through the shooting schedule. And I didn't know about it because episode 7, The Good Man Goes to War, because Dorian lost his head. I thought, well, that was it. In the back of my mind, I was saying, well, I suppose he could come because there is this question of what is Dorian's debt. And the fans I chat to online, they want to know what is the debt. So, so when I came back in this the question, I've lost my train of thought now. What was your question?
Did you know anything about what it?
No, the answer is all I had was this script.
So you know as much as
everyone.
And
I knew I saw this the fall of the 11th, and I will admit that I thought, does that mean Matt Smith's end?
And yeah,
but it might not be because Stephen Moffat isn't that obvious usually, so it could be anything.
Exactly,
could be referring to a game of cricket. We don't know. We're yet to find. And when I first read the script, I howled with laughter. Particularly the. Tell me, Doctor, how bad are my injuries? Even now it makes me laugh. But when I saw this, that I had the last lines, I did get momentarily scared. Because first of all, there was the honour and the privilege of being given not only the last line of an episode, but the last line of the series. Which meant, and I was saying to myself, well, I've got to deliver this properly, otherwise nobody will want to come back. So I did think to myself different ways of delivering it. And originally, when I did it, I had an evil cackle at the end. Doctor Who. Right. But then they ask, what they do is they ask you if you can give them options.
Yeah,
and what you've got is the option they chose. And actually, they chose the right one. I think that, on reflection now, the laugh would have probably not been right.
Yeah.
But also, Matt Smith, because there's no real rehearsal as such, because there isn't the time. There isn't the luxury of having 2 days just to be in another room to rehearse. So the only rehearsal time you get is when they're doing their technical stuff to run things. And I must admit, I didn't register at the time of filming, but it was only when I saw it at this "Tell Me, Doctor, how bad are my injuries?" and I start to laugh. It's Matt Smith's response to that, and you can see that it sort of reveals that there is a closer relationship with the Doctor and Dorian. So I'm thinking now, what is that? How is it Dorian knows about the future of the Doctor? Was he there? And of course he used to sell vortex manipulators, so did he just pop there?
Yeah.
Or is he as old as the Doctor?
Who knows?
And this is wonderful. There are all these questions, and on Facebook, so many people are asking all these questions all the time. And the actual answer, honest answer, is I don't know. Until the next script comes along,
you don't
know. And it's all up to Stephen Moffat.
I just had one come to my mind again. I've forgotten it now. Will we see your character return, do you reckon? In your mind, would you like to bring the character back? Or do you think that you've done...
For me personally, of course, if the phone call comes, there's no question of that. And in fact, I've said to Kim that there has to be something put in contracts that if I get the call, that I need to work around other stuff, jokingly. I'd love Dorian to come back. I absolutely know the fans want Doctor Who to come back, but really it's up to Stephen Moffat. We have no idea. You do get sounded out for things, but it doesn't always happen. Yeah. So you can't think, I must arrange my whole life because I might be called. But I'd like to think that Dorian comes back. There are so many questions that need to be answered, but whether they will be or how they will be, who knows?
When you did the show, when you first got the initial script, did it change in any way at all? Did it literally stay as that draft since you had it, sort of?
Which episode?
In general, did they change much?
Yeah, they can change. I mean, for example, the Good Man Goes to War, we had a false ending.
Yeah.
So that was different. And also, I mean, not so much for me personally, but I think for some of the other characters, the actual writing had changed quite a bit. Because having the read-through with everybody is the only time the writers really can hear it proper. And when it's happening, you can see people and question mark, and because of course it's how we deliver the line as well. It can change the total meaning of a sentence.
Yeah, I think that's everything.
Because what they like or what they do, actors are expected to know. They don't. All these things you do learn at drama college, that you need to analyse the character and go deep and go and stand in a corner and think. But in practice, particularly television, unless it's something very, very major, there isn't the time to have that. So the skill you've got to develop is know your craft and access it quickly. And so, yes, whilst you're on your journey, on the train journey, I was thinking of a backstory for Dorian, because there was a reference to his mother in an early script.
Yeah.
And the reference also said that she was a composer. So I'm thinking, well, if she was a composer, does Dorian have a musical bent as well? Is he, does he play the euphonium or a sousaphone, or is he a conductor? So there is all that going on in your head all the time. And you just hopefully it comes out in some sort of way. And occasionally you are asked, what do you think of this and what do you think of that? But generally no. And they expect you, they just go, right, action. There's no discussion. No discussion at all. All right, go for it. And then you do another take, you might do it slightly differently, and they might say, "Oh, actually, can you keep it the way it was?" And that's the only time you get. But as to getting that sort of information and feedback prior, very rarely.
Out of all the roles that you've done, TV, film, what one you most recognise? You most recognised for Dorian, or is it another one? Like, for example, Harry Potter.
I've been a jobbing actor for nearly 30 years, and I absolutely accept that nobody knows who the hell I am. But in the industry, I've developed. I'm called and I'm asked more often than actually having to go to a casting. So that's really nice. I still have to go to casting. But, as I say, in Doctor Who world, people know exactly who I am, and are very complimentary, which is quite blush making. But thoroughly enjoy it. A lot of my work I've done in the past has ended up on the cutting room floor, which has been really frustrating. Yeah. So the thing I have to thank Stephen Moffat and the entire team is most of what I've done has been kept, and because Dorian is such a complicated character, I've been able to show different sides of him, which shows what I can do, and I think that's helped with the stuff that's coming up now.
And just another one that comes off the top of my head again. Yeah. What was it like working with Matt and the team, like all together when you're with them together? What was it like working with them? Because obviously there's bits when you worked with...
Well, as I said previously, it was quite nerve-wracking at first. Because on my first day, because I'd just been picked, and you turn up and it's set up in a boardroom-style table, and you just walk along and you find the piece of paper with your name on it, and you just sit down. And I found that I was sat next... This is where the Pandorica opens. I was sat next to Nick Briggs, who's the voice of the Daleks, and he got his machine and he was twiddling his knobs and goodness knows what else. And then here, Alex Kingston. Alex Kingston, because she has the most extraordinary eyes as well. But she was very nice, very polite, very nice. Anyway, she went off somewhere, and I got talking to Nick, because he's the voice of the Cybermen as well. And there was this tap on the shoulder. I turned around, and he was Matt Smith. He said, "Hello, I'm Matt." He said, "Welcome aboard." Really sweet. He said, "Seen your casting." I thought, oh shit. Because you do your thing and you go and you don't think about it seriously. And then gradually other people were coming up to me and saying, "Oh, we saw your casting, very good." And again I'm thinking, oh bloody hell. And then Stephen Moffat came up to me, shook my hand, and said, "Very glad that we've secured you." I thought, bloody hell, they think I'm someone else. That's my very honest opinion. But of course, I am now that person that they thought I was. And so it was really great. And they were very nice, and the whole team are lovely. Makeup, wonderful girls. Makeup, sound crew, everybody, absolutely delightful. Everybody knowing what their bit of the job is, but being very friendly and a happy family. Simple as that. And then when I was called back, it was even more extraordinary. So I know when the call comes, I can relax in the sense that there's going to be no hassle, provided I learn my lines. Yeah.
And to switch between the roles of Dorian and obviously yourself when you're on the set, is it something you can do quite easy? Because some sort of actors, they struggle with changing into the part they're supposed to do so quickly.
I understand those actors who feel they have to stay in character all the time. I understand that totally. But it's easier for me to be able to step in and out. That's all. You go to college, and some colleges say this is the right way to do things, and the actual honest answer is there's no right way, it's your way. And the only thing I would recommend to any actor is don't be too rigid with your way, because you have to work with others who do it a slightly different way, and as long as you can meet halfway, it's marvellous. Stick to your way for what you do personally. I mean, I have difficulty learning lines, unless they're good lines. I mean, for example, tell me, Doctor, how bad are my injuries? You don't need to know that
need
line.
to-
It's
that's
just a
easy to
funny
just-
line, isn't it? And it'll just stick in completely. Whereas the fall of the 11th and all that, I had to work on that because it's breathing and all that sort of thing. But so I pace up and down, and I'm doing the ironing and the washing up, and I'm sort of spouting the lines. But once you've got the lines, you can relax a bit. And for me, to not think about it all the time does help. But you are, to be honest, you're in place, and I have found that I've got the knack of once they say right, as soon as you hear that, you suddenly go like that, and you click in it, yeah. But it's taken me 25 odd years to get to that. 25 years ago, I know I was a complete dipstick, but and of course it's things that you learn whilst doing. Doing is the only real learning.
You say you met did you say you met other doctors as well? Like,
well, I've met, going along these conventions, I've met Paul McGann quite often, and Sylvester McCoy, and recently I did a Motormouth charity event for Janet Fielding, and of course there was David Tennant, Peter Davidson, and Colin Baker there as well, all delightful. And there's a friend of mine, it's called Dudley Rogers, and we used to do panto together as Ugly Sisters.
I've seen that. Is that one that's in the show reel, or is that different?
Oh yes, on my show you've seen that. And when we're, we very often share digs, and he'd knock on my door in the morning, and he'd go, "Morning, sister." Yeah, I go, "Morning, sister." Well, I found at this convention that Peter Davidson went up to Sylvester McCoy and said, "Good morning, Doctor." And so Wilson went, "Good morning, Doctor." So it was really, really funny because, particularly in theatre, this is why the term "darling" came about. I'm absolutely certain. Is during the run in the theatre, you tend to refer to yourselves as your character name, and that's why sometimes you forget people's real names. But absolutely, it was marvellous. It was wonderful. It was fantastic. And I've got one of the fans brought. It's a shame I haven't got it here, otherwise I'd show you a very long picture, and she created her own. She drew them herself pictures of all the people that were supposed to be at this Motormouth, and she included me, bless her, as just the head in the box under Sylvester McCoy's arm, but they all signed it for me. So it's really lovely. I should have. So I've been very lucky. I haven't actually worked with them. Many of them, but I'd very much like to work with all of them. I'd have no hassle with it at all. And the rather spooky thing, even the older doctors, or the classic doctors, know who Dorian is. Yeah. Because they'll come up and they'll look at me and say, because there's always this question, well, why is he here? And they do exactly the same. So I shake hands and I just say, I'm the head in the box. Or the blue man. At one convention from the floor, this little girl, she could have only been about 6. She said, "I got a question, I've forgotten your name." She said, "But you're blue." But so you can't take yourself too seriously. No.
I just wanted to add in the end that I can't thank Simon Fisher-Becker enough for doing this for me. I got distinction for the overall project, and it was just such an amazing experience. I've never met an actor outside of a convention environment, and it helped my confidence so much in that area. I'm useless at talking to people that I don't know. Anyone that knows me knows that. And when I meet actors, as in my documentary, if you haven't seen that yet, click onto that. I explain some things in there. I honestly just clam up and shut up, basically, which I'm going to do now. The next video will be of my Dan Starkey interview. I'll put that up sometime soon. But yeah, I hope you're having a great time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.